biggest lie they ever told us that we all from Africa, scared black. We all are not from Africa. We were always here on this land. We didn't come from no Africa.
You're Indian?
Yeah.
Oh, come on, man.
Yeah.
What
kind of Indian are you?
Like Tonto Indian?
Shitty Indian.
Yeah, I had no idea about the history. I had no idea how inclusive this group is and what it means to be part of Standing Rock and be part of the United Sioux Nations.
Well, I have one. It's my tribal tattoo. I'm from, the Pamunkey tribe.
And asked my grandma, like, "Yo, grandma, what's your background?" She's like, "Redfoot and Blacktail Indian." What? Yeah, my mother and my father did. We 100% Indians.
Host a show. I've been in the business so long, and I'm the only Indian in the business today.
For the spot, sit back and watch. Don't watch your watch, man. Give me some time, man. I am the bomb, man. I am gonna swim till I come out on dry land, out on the fry pan. No, we did not land, open and rock, and landed on our land. Now we just buy land. No, we did not land, open and rock, and landed on our land. Now we just buy land.
Peace to the tribes. What's going on, family? Hope you guys are having an awesome day. I am about to get into a little bit of information. The brother Ab TV hit on some things. You know, we always talk about buildings, but we talked about some other things as far as the cornerstone and things. Very good build this morning. I wanted to show this video. Maybe I'll save it because he said, actually, I think I am. He said that he's going to do a build, another part 2 on this tomorrow, and then maybe I can bring it up then. So, guys, let's do this. I'm going to play one more video for you guys, maybe 2. I'm not going to lie. Happy Indigenous Day to all. The brother A1 did inform. I did hear about Indigenous Day, but I was not aware that it was today. So glad that we know that. And I actually was going to relax today. He was not going to do any particular type of build, but when he said it was Indigenous Day, I said, how can I not do a build today, even if it's something that's not too long? Go over a little bit of information at the same time. Why did this video just disappear? I was looking for. Wait a minute, and I lost it and it disappeared, but let's get to it. Where is it? I can make this screen bigger just so I can find it now because it just disappeared. Oh, I like this one. Let's do this one. Hold on. I gotta make it smaller again because I wasn't able to find it. Okay. All right, guys, let's go. Let's see. Grand risings, guys. Let's go. Let me see if I can get this to share. It's showing pretty small on my end, but I don't know what's going on here. I've done something I shouldn't have did. Made it smaller, made it bigger than it should have been. Okay, I think I got it now. There we go. Let's see. Yeah, there we go. This one is cute. I like this one. Let's play this real quick.
You look so bad. Speak up, sister. You ain't tough. How come?
We were dancing.
No jam? No jumper? Well, I guess this called production.
Hey. Happy Aboriginal Day. Oh, girl, how we move? Y'all know we the only ones with that type of footwork. Feeling it. Who move like that but us, y'all? Who move like that but us? Like, that's just serious, real talk. Nobody can move like us. We have a rhythm that is like so deep inside of us. We cannot even, like, we can't help it. You hear a beat, it's like what you just go to move. I don't care if you're in a bad mood or whatever. You hear the right rhythm and beat, you be like, you right with it. You can't help it. You cannot
One
help
thing
it.
I really want.
Wrong video. Okay, got another one for y'all. Hold on. Let's play with it.
Country playing.
I think this is a good day to do a few videos before I get into the information. Story time about to be good, y'all. Story time about to be good. I got a nice, interesting story. Oh my gosh. Okay, let's see. My thing just got so much in it. I got to really learn how to clean some of this stuff out. Yep. Just got like 2 videos. I must have downloaded it and didn't know I downloaded it and downloaded it again. So now I'm missing stuff, y'all. Hold on a second. I'm about to get to y'all with the one I want. I want to play a particular one. Hold on a second. Is this it? No, that's not it. That's not it. About to get to it, though. About to get to it, y'all. Give me a second. Give me a second. Yeah, I got like the same video on here a few times. It's so aggravating. How did I even do that? Clicking too many times. Clicking too many times. Okay. Here it is. Let me see. Is this it? Yes, this is it. Goodness gracious alive. It took all of that.
America's first civilization. To turn around and to tell these young.
Hold on. All that. Just to get to the little video. Now I made the screen too big. Okay, there we go. All right, guys. Here we go. I'm on it. This is not going to be a long video, guys. I definitely just want to tap in. I said I was going to rest and relax. I had a few things I needed to handle today, but I'm going to take a little time to go over some things with y'all. This next story is very interesting, so we're going to see what we get out of it. But let's play another video or so, and we are going to get started.
America's first civilization. To turn around and to tell these youngsters and other people in America in particular that the French was the first to build any type of civilization in the Americas will be disturbing to Americans. It makes a lot of difference. What kind of? It takes the inferiority complex out of the black man who felt that his only beginning a relationship here in this part of the world is that of slavery. Because again, they don't tell you that they are man-made hills within the United States. They call them mounds. And they range from in the Midwest all the way down the eastern seacoast of the United States. And they are found artifacts in them that are similar to things found in West Africa and in Egypt, which is Northeast Africa, that predates the arrival of the so-called indigenous Indians to these lands.
Period, right? You guys remember the book, the Egyptian book, showing all of these Egyptians with the braids and the afros. That literally is it's enough in itself to show you. If it wasn't anything to hide, why, my dear people, would you guys not have that in every other information that we have about the Egyptians? Why, when that ancient information, those ancient records, those ancient pictures and plates and wall art, why when they display that with the braids and with the afros, right? They would want you to know that, huh? Peace and bliss to everybody that came in. Let's get through our story real quick. Let you guys get out of here. I'm hoping that everyone is going to have some awesome information today. I planned on just browsing around YouTube today. Started off with a great build with Ab TV, awesome build. I said, let me do a little something since it's Indigenous Day, and hopefully I'll be able to catch a couple other good builds and be able to build on some information. A lot of times when people are having other builds, if it's something that I haven't talked about in a while, it's nice to get into those conversations and provide proof for the naysayers, for all the Black people in our community, you know. So your girl gonna make sure that we try to get some true light unto people that are in reception of it, those that are open and have an open ear and an open eye to actually visualize information and hear it and connect it. Yeah, them are the ones we want. All right, guys, let's get into the story. This is a nice story, and I'll try not to talk as much. I'll try not to talk through it, but we'll see how that goes. Let's go.
The flight from the fourth to the fifth world Navajo. Beneath this world there were 4 other worlds. The people who live here now once lived in each of those other worlds. In each one of them they did wrong, and from each one of them they were driven forth. The first world was red, and the people who lived in it had wings and were something like our locusts and dragonflies. All such insects, as we know them now, are related to those people who began life in the first world. When they were driven forth, they all took to their wings and flew in circles upward until they reached the sky. In the sky they found a hole, and they went through it to the surface of the second world. The second world was blue, and in that world the swallow people lived. Their houses, rough and lumpy, lay scattered all around. The houses were pointed at the top, and in the point was the hole for entrance. The people from the first world and the swallow people became good friends and lived together pleasantly and happily. But IQ. In TJIAN legends, after a short time the people from the first world again did wrong and again were driven forth. Again they rose in circles to the sky, found a hole in it, and went up through it to the third world. The third world was yellow, and the grasshopper people lived there. They lived in holes in the ground along the banks of a great river. The grasshopper people were kind to their visitors until they found out how bad they were. Then the people from the first world were driven forth, and for the third time were obliged to seek another world. They rose in circles to the sky, found a hole in it, and went up through it to the fourth world. The fourth world was black and white, mixed. Here lived strange men who cut their hair square in front, dwelt in houses in the ground, and cultivated the fields. They also were very kind to the people from the first world, and gave them pumpkins and corn to eat. The people from the first world then held a council and made up their minds to be very good, and to do nothing to make their new friends angry. Here it was that, late in the autumn, the first man and the first woman were made. The people who had come up from the first world had bodies like the gods, but the teeth, feet, and claws of insects. The gods wished to make some people more like themselves. They made the first one Pueblo Indians. Man from an ear of white corn, and the first woman from an ear of yellow corn. The wind blew upon them and gave them life. It is the wind that comes out of our mouths now that gives us life. When it stops blowing, we die. In the skin at the tips of our fingers we see the trail of the W4ND, it shows us the way the wind blew when our ancestors were created. First man and first woman had many children, who married the people of the fourth world, so that soon there was a large tribe. First man was a chief among them. One day all the men except Coyote went out hunting. Coyote had hurt his foot and could not go. He limped over to first woman's lodge, and went in to see her. She gave him a piece of dried meat to eat. "This is fine meat," said Coyote, gobbling it. "You know how to prepare meat. It must cost you much labor." "Yes, so it does," said first woman. "You men do not know how much time it takes to cut and stretch and dry the meat, to say nothing of cooking it and scraping the hides." She was sharpening her stone knife as she spoke. "You have the worst of it," said Coyote. You have to stay at home and watch the fire and sharpen the knives and collect the wood, while the men have the pleasure of the hunt. This day with you is teaching me much. Coyote was not married. First woman went out for wood, and came in again with a load on her back. She had been thinking over Coyote's words. Asterisk, it is so, she said, no one counts the labor of women. Now first man has a few days in the forests and mountains, hunting. For many days afterward he will lie before the fire smoking, while I work to preserve the meat he brings. Far into the winter I shall be sewing on the skins. You eat the food and wear the clothes and think his share in the labor of procuring them has been the greater. Coyote shook his head as he ate another piece of meat. He does not know what a good wife he has, said he. When the men returned from the hunt, first woman silently took the venison, cut it up with her sharp knife, and cooked it. When it was eaten she told first man what Coyote had said. She showed him the corn she had been grinding for many days. She pointed to the pile of meat, and told him how hard she must work to prepare it for winter. First man grunted. He was very tired. He thought he had done well in the hunt. First woman grew angry, and at last first man became angry too. Perhaps you think, then, said first man, that you women can live without the men? Perhaps it was a woman who killed that deer. Certainly we can live without the men, answered first woman. We can live on the produce of our fields and on the roots and berries we collect. Page 12 */ is so, she said. No one counts the labor of women. N. First man was so angry that he jumped over the fire to the other side of the lodge, and would not speak to her again for the rest of the night. Next morning he called all the men to him, but bade the women stay away. He told the men what his wife had said, and added, let us see if they can hunt game and till the fields without our help. Let us see what kind of a living they can make by themselves. Let us go across the river and leave them. Some of the young men cried when they were ordered to go and leave their wives behind. 2 of them as yet had no wives, but among the women were 2 maidens whom they loved. These men were ashamed to let their tears show. They swallowed them, but the taste was bitter in their hearts.
Yeah, they know they want to lead a woman.
Too, had their grief, but they clung together. One of them whispered to the other, it is good they have no women with them. Yes, that is good, said the other maiden. At first the crowd of women made merry together. They spent long hours in talking and singing. They told each other how good it was to cook only when it pleased them, and not to be obliged to hurry to make ready for the men returning from the hunt or the field. They kept together most of the time, and braided each other's hair and taught each other pretty tricks of embroidery and weaving.
That part.
Their laughter rang over the river in the twilight as they sat sewing and talking together. They sat where the men could see them. They had plenty of corn and pumpkins,
yes, nice
grown in the
read.
fields the men had planted. Almost all they had to do was to go and gather them. There was plenty of wild fruit, also, and they went together to pluck it. Then would the 2 maidens leave the trail and wander in the depths of the woods, sighing and mourning for those whom they loved. But they dared not show their grief. Now and then through the trees they saw some lonely woman gliding along, looking upon the ground. From her eyes dropped shining tears. The maidens hastened to hide themselves, nor did they tell of what they saw. Day after day went by, and year after year. And though the women huddled so close together and made so much of loving one another, they were very lonely. They wondered if the men across the river were as brave and busy as they looked. They saw them every day going out to hunt, or plow carroting the fields, or harvesting, or lying around the fire, smoking and resting. Did all this satisfy the hunger of their hearts? The women wondered. Some of them knew it did not, but they sat silent. It was they who crept through the woods and wept. It was they whose husbands had wept on leaving them. It was they whom the 2 maidens envied, as they watched them beneath their eyelids. The women did not till the fields well, and year by year their crops grew smaller, while across the river the crops grew larger. The women wandered farther and farther for their berries, and came home tired and hungry. They longed for meat, they could hardly sleep for longing. The sweet taste of the berries was flat in their mouths. The men had plenty. They shot fine deer, and ducks, and squirrels. As they roasted them before the fire, each one thought of his wife and wanted her all but first man. Such times reminded him of first woman's unjust scolding, and he grew angry again. 4 years passed in this way. In the 4th year the fields of the men once more stood ready for
4
harvest.
years?
There was more food than they could store away. Corn and pumpkins lay untouched upon the ground. They wanted to give them to somebody, but there was no one to whom to give them except their wives across the river. They looked across. There was only a little field there, poorly tilled, not a single yellow pumpkin brightened the gray scene. The women no longer sang, nor gathered upon the river bank. They kept themselves hidden in their lodges. At night, when the air was black, the sound of crying floated across the river.
Oh.
The women were starving, and the winter was coming on. The men could not bear this. First man himself began to consider the consequences. They held a council, and decided to send a message to the women. If they were ready to yield, the men would bring them across the river, hold a great feast, and start new homes. That night the men all dreamed of eating the food the women had cooked. Next morning the men rose early, but the lodges on the other side of the river were silent and smokeless. The women slept late to forget their hunger and their sorrow. The white air of the morning was beginning to be blue with noon when a few of them crept forth and went about gathering brushwood for the fires. They were bent with weakness and their steps were slow. 2 of them wandered off into the woods back of the village. These were the 2 maidens. They went to gather acorns and berries for breakfast. For a long time they had done this for the other women. They liked to do it, because in this way they could be alone. The berries near the village had all been picked. Now they had to go far to find any. Thus it happened that the 2 maidens were in the distant woods when first man sent his messenger to the river bank to call the women. The messenger's cries rose above the noise of the river. The wind carried them to the eager ears of the women, who for 4 years had listened for such a sound. They all trooped down to the bank to hear what the messenger said, all but first woman. She stayed in. They liked to do this because they could be alone her lodge. Her heart longed to go, but she was still proud. Where is first woman? Called the messenger across the river. Does she still live? First woman heard him. Her heart swelled until it filled her throat. So she was of some importance, after all. Yes, she is here, cried the women, all together, their high voices sailing across the river like birds. They went for first woman. They pulled her along with them, crying and laughing, scolding, and coaxing her. First woman hung back, but not with all her strength. At last she stood on the river bank facing the messenger. By this time all the men, except first man, were behind him. First woman saw at once that he was not there. Could he be dead? Her heart sank, and with it some of her pride fell. First woman, called the messenger, we do not like to see you starving. We would like to help you. But perhaps you do not want our help? Perhaps you think you can get along without us. Where is first man? Asked first woman. Her voice was sharp, and it shook a little as it cut its way across the river. Does he still live? Yes, the messenger shouted, so loud that he started the echoes. Yes, yes, they all said, all up and down the river. The women strained their eyes, each searching for one face among those of the men on the other shore. Can you get along without us? Called the messenger. Say no. Say no, begged the other women of first woman. First woman was wondering why first man was not there with the rest. No, no, she called. No, no, the women called, together. No, no, the echoes repeated all down the river. Everything seemed to be saying it. The men said it over and over, laughing and jumping about like boys. No, no, they can't get along without
They
us,
love
they
that.
shouted. The cheeks of some of them were wet. They rushed down
Trying.
to the great raft they had made and hidden among the rushes. As they stepped upon it, First Man joined them.
Wanting the women
He could wait
to
no
be
longer.
with them. They
So they
couldn't
all
do
went
it.
across and gathered up the women, and brought them to their new homes. When the two maidens came back from the forest, staggering under their light loads of berries, they found the houses empty and the fires gone out. From the opposite bank came the sound of laughter and singing, but all the people were inside their houses. They have gone away and left us, cried the maidens. They looked across the river. They looked and looked, until the longing in their hearts drew their bodies toward the other shore. They crept down the river bank, still looking, they stepped into the cold water, still looking. Their hearts were so hot with grief and shame, they did not feel the cold of the river. No one came to the opposite bank to look for them. The water grew deeper, they had to swim. Their arms were weak, their bodies heavy. Their heads sank beneath the water. But then they could not watch the shore, so with a mighty effort they forced their heads up again, to look and look. Thus it was that the water monster caught them. Out in the middle of the river, where the water was swift and deep, he caught them both about the body with his thick furred arms and pulled them down to his home beneath the waves. All this time the young men, their lovers, were going from lodge to lodge, seeking them. They hid the desire of their hearts, for no one yet knew of their love. In each lodge they were feasted, in each they had to express joy and ask many questions about things for which they cared nothing. The one question they did care to ask no one answered well, no one knew what had become of the two maidens. At last there were no more lodges to search, and they went down to the edge of the Black River. On the opposite shore, in the clear gray light, they saw a tall figure standing. It was the white god, he who helps men out of their troubles. He held up two fingers to indicate the two maidens, and pointed downward to the river. Quickly the two young men ran to a small raft and went across the river to speak to him, but when they reached the farther shore the god was gone. They sought for the trail of the lost maidens and finally found the tracks going to the forest and back again. They saw where the maidens had stood restless on the river bank, where they had slipped going down it, and slipped again on the muddy marge. The tracks went into the water, but alas! The young men knew they did not come out again on the other side. While they stood looking at the black water, much wishing to follow the maidens into its depths, White God appeared once more, this time close beside them and no longer alone. His friend, the Blue God, was with him. White God held in his hand a bowl made from a large white shell, and Blue God held another made from a blue shell. They set these spinning on their hands. Faster and faster they spun, until they spun out into the air and down into the center of the river. Blue and white they flashed in the clear gray air, and the black waters whirled open beneath their spinning. Now there was another watching all this from the opposite shore. This was Coyote. He had no wife, and so he had nothing to do but watch others. He had been going about from lodge to lodge, carrying tales and bragging. Now as he had no more lodges to visit, he had come to the shore in time to see the blue bowl and the white bowl whirling in the black river. He did not see the gods. When the young men on their raft pulled out to the center of the river, Coyote, in his canoe, was there before them. All three of them looked into the whirlpool, and saw that it led down to the house of the waters. Where the young men went, there Coyote went also, but they did not notice him. They were looking ahead, looking for the maidens as the maidens had looked for them. Down the center of the whirlpool they went, into the house of the waters. In the house were 4 rooms. The room in the east was made of dark waters, they found nothing there. The room in the south was made of blue waters, they found nothing there. The room in the west was made of yellow waters, they found nothing there. The room in the north was made of waters of all colors, and there they found the 2 lost maidens. There, too, was the water monster, stupid under the spell of the gods, his breath lifting his furry sides as he lay close against his 2 children, but the young men saw neither the monster nor his children. They saw only the two maidens, and the two maidens saw only their lovers. Together, looking into each other's eyes, they passed up the whirling entranceway, out of the many-colored waters into the gray light of the sky. Coyote was different. He looked at the water monster, and nosed him over, as he lay in the depths of the river, half asleep and heaving. Then he picked up the young of the monster and hid them under his robe. No one saw him do it except the water monster himself, lying helpless under the spell of the gods. Coyote, with his robe wrapped tight about him, got up through the whirlpool just before it closed. He went to his lodge, and there he played with the miserable children of the water monster, who were too dry by far in Coyote's earthy house. He liked to tease them, and to think he was not alone in his house, that he had a secret there, a dangerous secret that nobody knew. The water monster swam slowly out to sea, to escape the spell of the gods. And there, where there was no whirling to confuse him, he laid his heavy head upon a rock in the depths of the great waters. There he slowly thought, and slowly resolved how to rescue his children. Next day the people saw deer, turkey, and antelope running from east to west. Animals of 6 different kinds, 2 kinds of hawks, 2 kinds of squirrels, the hummingbird, and the bat came into their camp as if escaping from some danger. The next day more animals ran past, wild animals that do not usually come near men. For 3 days this happened. On the morning of the 4th day the people saw a white gleam along the horizon, and sent out the locusts to see what made this strange shining. The locusts flew off with a loud whirring and buzzing of wings, looking like a thin black cloud scattering through the gray air. When the yellow afternoon was changing to the black night, they returned, with a loud clapping of wings. Ah! 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 Cried the locusts. There is a great flood of waters coming in from the east. It is coming fast. It is a terrible flood. The people all gathered together when they heard this, and cried aloud in fear. Night came, but they could not sleep, so fearful were they. Next morning the waters were as high as mountains, encircling the whole horizon, except on the west, and rolling on rapidly. The people hastily packed all their things and climbed to the top of the high hill. Here they held a council to decide what they should do. Someone said that perhaps the squirrels could help them. "We will try," said the squirrels. One of them planted a pinyon seed, and one of them a juniper seed. The seeds sprouted at once and grew fast. The people hoped the trees would soon grow so tall the flood could not reach their tops, and that all might climb into them and be saved. But after the trees had grown a little they began to branch out, and grew no higher. Then the frightened people called on the weasels. One of the weasels planted a spruce seed, and one a pine seed. The seeds sprouted at once and grew fast. Again the people began to hope, but again the trees began to branch out, and grew but little higher. The waters were coming nearer every moment, and the people were in great fear. Now 2 men drew near the hill. They were strangers. One was old and gray-haired, the other was young. The latter walked first. They went up the hill and passed through the crowd, speaking to no one.
Sorry.
The young man sat down on the top of the hill and the old man sat down. One of the weasels planted a spruce seed, and one a pine seed behind him, facing the east, where the dreadful waters had covered all the land. "Perhaps our father can do something for us," said the people. "I cannot," said the old man. "But ask my son, he may be able to help you." When they asked the son, he said he would help them if they would all face to the west and not look at him while he was at work. Then the people faced to the west, and the young man worked silently behind them. The waters were coming on steadily. The people heard the noise of them, they smelled them, but they continued to look toward the west. In a few moments the young man called them, and they saw that he had planted 32 reeds, each of which had 32 joints. As they watched they saw the roots of the reeds reaching out into the soil in all directions, and the reeds themselves growing fast. A moment later all the reeds joined together into one great reed, with a hole in its eastern side. The people hurried into this hole, scrambling over each other, and when they were all inside, the hole closed. They were not a moment too soon. The hole had scarcely closed when they heard the noise of the surging waters outside. The turkey was the last to get in. The waters wet the tip of his tail and he gobbled aloud, and the people were frightened again. To this day the ends of the turkey's tail feathers are lighter than the rest, to show where he dragged them in the water. Yin, 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 the waters cried, splashing against the reed. The waters rose fast, but the reed grew faster. It kept on growing, and soon it grew so high that it began to sway, and the people were afraid it would break. But 3 of their friendly gods were with them: the white god, the blue god, and the black god. The black god blew a great breath out of the top of the reed, and a black cloud closed up about it and steadied it. The reed grew higher and higher. Again it swayed and seemed about to break. The people within trembled as the reed trembled. Again the black god blew, and again a thick cloud closed up and steadied the swaying reed. At last it had grown so that it almost touched the sky, but it bent and waved so much the people could not fasten it to the sky. Then the black god, who was on top, took a plume out of his headband and stuck it out of the reed against the sky. This is why the reeds, to this day, always wear plumes on their heads. The people were up to the sky now, but they could find no hole in it. First man and first woman decided to dig a hole. First they called on the bear, and told him to dig. He dug and dug with his sharp claws until he was tired out, but he did not get through the sky. Then Wolf dug until he was tired out, but he did not get through the sky. Then Coyote dug until he was tired out, but he did not get through the sky. Then Lynx dug until he was tired out, but he did not get through the sky. Then Badger dug until he was tired out, and he did not get through the sky. But while Badger was digging, water began to drip from above, so the people knew he had struck the waters of the upper world, on the other side of the sky, and they sent Locust up. Locust made a sort of tunnel in the soft mud, and came through to the upper world. All locusts make such tunnels today, in memory of their ancestor. The locust found that he was near a little island in the center of a lake. The island was faintly green, the waters were faintly blue, and beyond them a wide, fiat land stretched out in every direction until it met the sky in a circle. The air did not look as it does at night, nor yet as it does in bright day, but as it does in the early dawn. Neither sun, moon, nor stars lighted the smooth arch of the sky. Coming toward Locust on the lake were 2 waterfowls. One of them was black, and came from the east, the other was yellow, and came from the west. The black waterfowl said to him, "Who are you, and whence come you?" As Locust did not reply, the waterfowl went on, "We own half of this world, I in the east, my brother in the west. We give you a challenge. If you can do what we do, we will give you half of the world. If you cannot, you must die." Each bird had an arrow made of the black wind. Each passed this arrow through his heart and flung it down. Then Locust picked up one of the arrows and passed it through his heart, just as the others had done. When he had flung it down, the waterfowls swam away, one to the east and one to the west. No sooner had they gone than 2 other waterfowls appeared, a blue one from the south and a shining one from the north. They also passed arrows made of the. Then Locust picked up one of the arrows and passed it through his heart. Black wind through their hearts and challenged the Locust to do likewise. Again the Locust took an arrow and passed it through his body from side to side. Then the waterfowls swam away, leaving all the land to the Locust. To this day the holes made in the Locust's sides are plainly to be seen. The Locust went back and told the people what had happened. But when they tried to follow him, they found that the tunnel he had made was too small for them, so they sent the Badger to make it larger. When he came back, his legs were stained black with the mud he had dug through, and the legs of all the badgers have been black ever since. Then first man and first woman led the way, all the others followed, and at last they came through to the surface of this, the 5th world. First man and first woman looked about, and noticed the broad sky, and the land flat on every side. We will make mountains here, by and by, they told each other. It will be good work for our people. This land is too open. There is no place in it to take shelter. And everything is alike. We will change it. And they did. That is why the Lake of the Emergence now lies among high mountains.
Right.
The first people made these mountains in the first days, and fastened them in place with bolts of lightning, a great stone knife, sunbeams, and rainbows. In their turn the two young men and the two maidens came up.
That's right.
They saw the blue of the lake and the little silver ripples. They saw the trees on the island and the shadowy places under vines. They saw the birds' nests hidden in the leaves. They thought it a pleasant world. But now the people saw water rising in the tunnel. It was boiling up the long tube. They again held council, but knew not what to do to ward off this new danger. At last first man rose to speak. He pointed to Coyote and said, "That man is a rascal. There is something wrong about him. I have watched him, and I have noticed that he never takes off his robe, even when he sleeps. I believe he has stolen property under his arm.
Not a
Perhaps it is for his sin that we are punished." They tore the robe from Coyote, and the soft, furry young of the water monster dropped out from it. Quickly the people picked them up and threw them into the hole through which the waters were climbing. In an instant the waters sucked back with the little creatures in their grasp, and rushed away with a deafening noise into the fourth world, leaving the people safe above. At first the sky in the fifth world was like that in the other four worlds. It was white in the east, blue in the south, yellow in the west, and black in the north. First man and first woman thought they could make some lights that would make the earth brighter than this. They thought about it a long time, and talked it over with each other. At last they decided to make the sun and the moon. For the sun they took a clear stone and shaped it until it was a perfect circle. At first they thought of putting 5 points on it, as they afterward did on the stars, but they finally decided to make it round. They set turquoises all around its edge, and outside of these they put rays of red rain and rays of lightning, and set snakes of many kinds twisting out from it. When it was done the wind of the east begged that it be brought to his country, so they dragged it to the edge of the land where he dwelt. There they gave it to the young man who had planted the great reed for them in the fourth world. They gave it to him to carry, as a reward. Next they made the moon. First they took a piece of crystal and shaped it round like the sun, only smaller. They bordered it with white shells, and drew over its face sheet lightning and all kinds of waters. They gave it to the old gray-haired man whose son had made the great reed in the fourth world, and bade him carry it across the sky. When these two men were about to go away to begin their long labor, the people began to weep and wail, for they loved them for their kindness in an hour of trouble, and were sorry to lose them. But first man said, "Mourn not for them, you will see them in the heavens, and all who die will go to them there." Navajo, Part I. Soon after the first days a very beautiful maiden lived in a lodge with her 11 brothers. She had the north end of the lodge to herself.
Slow down. All right. We about to get into something else. Before I get into this, I want to show you something. They said that it's Indigenous Day, right? So let's check out the Indigenous information that they have going on at the UN, right? Because it's Indigenous Day. I think that would be a great idea because it's Indigenous Day. To see what they got going on, right? Now, check it out. These are indigenous people. These are the indigenous people that they have in the UN celebrating indigenous heritage, all about indigenous people. Y'all see all the indigenous people? I see a few darker people right here. You know, I see one or two up here. There's a half, I don't know what indigenous person, but she looks like an indigenous person here. She could be like Mexican. Something about her face looks kind of Mexican. I'm looking at this element on her head that looks, I don't know. This looks like a sister possibly, but I don't know what she got going on. This kind of reminds me of some type of African gear, even though she has some locks in her head. I'm not really sure, but this is what their depiction, as soon as you go to the information on Indigenous people, this is what they're depicting. It said Indigenous people are inheritors. Listen, Indigenous people are inheritors. That's the very first, most prominent thing for an Indigenous person to know, guys. I got crazy ear clogged up and everything going on, so y'all gotta excuse me. I gotta get some of my stuff. Indigenous people are inheritors and practitioners, right, of unique cultures and ways of relating to people and the environment. It says that they have retained social, cultural, economic, and political characteristics that are distinct. They are distinct from those of the dominant societies. How could they be dominant if they're distinct? And either or, in which they live. Despite their cultural differences, Indigenous people from around the world share common problems relating to the protection of their rights as distant people. So I can understand that. So maybe, I don't see how all these pale people are Indigenous, but that's neither here nor there. It says that Indigenous people have sought recognition of their identities, way of life, and their right to traditional lands. Their right to traditional lands. So their right to traditional lands and territories and natural resources for years, yet throughout history, their rights have been violated. Indigenous people today are arguably among the most disadvantaged, and the most vulnerable groups of people in the world. The international community now recognizes that special measures are required. Special measures are required to protect their rights and maintain their distinct cultures and way of life. I don't know how they're doing it by promoting costumes and guards with all these people. Look at these people. This one, a Chinese one. This some type of Russian. I don't know who these people are. These are the mechanisms of the Indigenous people. I don't even care to read about them right now, but y'all see them. Now, here we go. Where are we at? Why aren't we at any of these meetings? It's kind of what I want to know. They have events. I didn't even know that it was Indigenous Day. I mean, they talk about Puerto Rican Day, Caribbean days. I hear that all the time. Mexican holidays, and what they call it, Cinco de Mayo. I mean, we hear all this stuff, but today being Indigenous Day, a brother had to come on the panel and state that, oh yeah, today's Indigenous Day. I'm like, oh really? Wow, that's crazy. So when we're looking at this stuff, right, it's just amazing to me. Very amazing. I don't see any of our people anywhere. Like, why aren't we at these places and like standing up for ourselves? Look at this, the UNDRIP. This was April. This was April of 2023, a few months ago. So they had a conference on the UNDRIP. Why didn't we hear about this? Talking about the Indigenous people's human health, planetary territorial health, and climate change, and the rights-based approach. So I see all these people here. I don't see too many brown people from the back. I don't know, but I see all these Indigenous people, and they're showing all around the world, the UN, the whole world. And like, I'm just wondering, like, where are people at? Why we ain't there though? Okay, check this out. Now, y'all saw what they're representing, right? And I want y'all to see one other thing. Let's see. Where is it? Okay. Now, when looking at those pictures and, us not even being around, participating, having anything to do with like Indigenous Day, right? But it's supposed to be about who? American people, because that's what it says right here in the UNDRIP. Let's just go over a little bit of the UNDRIP. We're not going to go over the whole document, but I just want you to see a couple of different things. It says right here in Section 1, Indigenous people scope of application. When it comes to Article 1.1, the American Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous People applies to the Indigenous people of the Americas. Okay, so if it applies to the indigenous people of the Americas, why aren't we the top priority when it comes to these conferences? Why aren't we made aware of them? Why aren't we keeping up with, what's going on? Because we know that it applies to us. They say it applies to us, but we haven't seen any difference. Why haven't we stepped up to the plate and gone as groups and said like, hey, you guys, this applies to us. What's going on? Why aren't we getting the help we need? What's going on? Why aren't we doing it? I'm just curious, to find out, that this is Indigenous Day. This is a good day to think about your heritage, right? And think about the things that would be beneficial, things that we need to be doing, keeping in mind, maybe writing letters, maybe getting together and maybe if thousands of people at a time were sending in like, hey, yo, did y'all forget us? Like, hello? Like, I don't know. People don't like paperwork, right? They don't like putting in paperwork, but sometimes you have to use your paperwork and let it precede you and let the law stand behind what is being said. Because see, this applies to you, right? And using this documentation in itself, that right there says it's talking about you. So if it's talking about me, why isn't this being used to assist me in some type of way? As far as y'all getting out of here and we handling our own shit. What that could start, but that's another story, right? It also lets you know that what? Self-identification as an indigenous people will be a fundamental criteria for determining to whom this declaration applies. Now, that would mean also that if you aren't making it sure to them that you have self-identified yourself, right? You've let them know, hey, I'm a person that is indigenous. Maybe you didn't know, maybe the world's been fooled. Maybe you guys have, been trying to hide it. I don't know if you're a part of this at all, but, being that you're the UN and you guys are the government or so on and so forth, and you're saying that this applies to us, why wouldn't you guys be setting this in effect for us? Maybe we need to make sure that this is happening, because it seems that if you are self-identifying, right? Because it tells you that you have to self-identify as indigenous people to be a fundamental criteria, right? So fitting up under that criteria, you have to self-identify, right? So for determining whom this applies. So now if you want this action, these things to apply to you, right? You have to self-identify. We can't say, oh, I don't want to do paperwork. I ain't got to tell them who the hell I am. I know who I am. My grandma told me, my great-great-granddad said, and I was from here. We got this land. We got this property. We got this tribe, da-da-da. I feel you on all that. People, check it out, though. All I'm saying is that it is very effing important for these people to know that See, this is the thing. It's people that's still blind and black and minor. They're minorities in the mind. They need people to think for them, right? You don't need anyone to speak for you. See, they already know who you are, but you have to make the step up to let them know that you know. See, that's the whole directive. The directive is to let them know that you know. Because see, there are other blind people and black people and minorities that are going to stay not notifying them because they don't have the fortitude to know. I have to let these people know that this applies to me. Even though y'all know, I got to let you know I know. You know what I'm saying? You got to let them know that you know. That's very, very important. Trust and believe me. It says that this state shall respect the right to such self-identification as indigenous, individual, or collectively in keeping with the practice and the institution of each individual people. Now, when we think about that, and we look at those pictures that they just showed us on the flip side, could it possibly be saying that these indigenous people aren't you? Because, before they have been reclassified, at one point in time. These people that are native, they weren't natives before, right? They were not natives before. So is it possible that they could be being reclassified, right? Them being reclassified as indigenous people to blend in again into a new society of the actual Aboriginal indigenous people, kind of blending them into the indigenous, that I can kind of see that too. So there's a lot to think about when it comes to this. So let's read a little bit more, right? Yeah, they know they know exactly who we are, brother. Yes. But you got to let them know that you know, and that you're putting that. So you're sending out a notice, just like your job. If you wanted to quit your job, you'll send them a notice. Hey, in 2 weeks I'll be leaving. I decided this isn't a place for me, or I'll be moving on to better prospects, or I'll just be leaving. Either way, you're going to give them a 2 weeks notice, right? So you're putting them on notice to notify them that, you got a little more time with me, but then it's over. So now when it comes to this, you're putting them on notice so that they are notified as to who you are. You're in your proper thinking. You've taken the legal steps in the law so that it applies to you, so on and so forth, right? That would be kind of one of the fundamental things that's important, right? Article 3. It says that the state recognizes the respects the multicultural and multilingual character of the indigenous people who are an integrate part of the society. So now when we think about an integrate part, that's what makes you think. So when it's intricate, that's putting something inside of. So that's adding on. So, maybe this is possibly the blending per se, or the reclassification of a Native American, just like the $5 Indians that were reclassified and they were able to pay their way in, the pale skins with paying the $5, like, hey, just put me in there, put me on the roll because I'm going to get this bread. Maybe this is some sort of way to do that, possibly, right? Going down to Article 3, it says the indigenous people have the right to self-determination by virtue of the right that they freely determine their political status, and freely pursue their economic, social, and cultural development. Wait a minute. So maybe that reclassification could be a good thing. Because if I were to do these things and I were to have the time to pursue my economic, social, and cultural development, I could create a community, right? I could start a community because I have been labeled as indigenous, and because the indigenous have certain rights and the right to do these things are put into effect based off of the government standards. So now based off the UNDRIP, you would have to pay for that. Oh, okay. So you're responsible for my land, my cultural and economic future, because of me coming into my fortitude of an indigenous person or indigenous soul to this land. I would say indigenous, Aboriginal, Indian to this land, right? In my self-proclamation. That's just, me. Nothing in this declaration may be indeterminate as implying for any state, people, group, or persons at any right to engage in any activity or in the performance of any act contrary to the charter of this organization of the American States of the Charter of the United Nations, or construed as authorizing or encouraging any action which would dismember or impair totally or in part the territorial integrity or political unity of sovereign and independent states. They said sovereign and independent states. So now that would lead me to believe that if I am in my sovereign fortitude and I am self-determining myself and giving my particular status, being that I am original to the soil of this land, and being that there should be no debt applied to me, not talking about just the Indian non-tax, but being that all debt belongs to the United States because they have taken over and done things. Now, based off your treasonous acts, you do owe, based on the things you've been putting into my system. Oh, thanks. I appreciate you guys taking care of this shit for me. I'm so glad that you set up this Social Security card and this birth certificate and thought you're going to get away with it. And I was not going to be able to take over the control or the assets to be able to use these things once I come into my true fortitude, right? Especially coming together as a nation. Doing these things is not that freaking hard. So when we're thinking about that, this could be a good thing, huh? Could be a good thing, even letting these people come in and get a piece of the pie and shit like they always damn do. But hey, at least we're getting some of it, right? Is that y'all thinking? Let me get to the chat real quick so I can see what's going on over here. Let me see what y'all talking about over here. Indigenous People Day, right? And I'm thinking like, damn, Indigenous People Day. What do that mean? Am I supposed to use that to apply to me? Are they really talking about the native? I ain't gonna lie. When I heard Indigenous, I'm thinking they talking about a native. I ain't gonna lie to you. That's just me. Thought. Now, when we read it, it said the original people of America, so they actually talking about us. So now, even though they talking about us, they putting up a facade of these other people. Y'all see on the page, right? It's showing all of the natives, all the Siberians, the Yak people, the Russian, natives. It was showing all them, but I didn't really see but a few people that were actually the American indigenous ones, right? That's what was fantastic about that whole scene. The shit was crazy to me. But what it is, American Indian Day. That come on, come with me, somebody. Come with me, sis. Because listen, when I heard this thing, like I said, I'm thinking, damn, it's a Native American Day now. Not even thinking it was us, and then the brother was saying something. I'm like, oh, okay. So they're saying it's our day. So I thought about it. I said, oh, the undrip. That's why it's saying indigenous. Oh, damn, that sounds like some blending shit to me. That sounds like something like now the natives can say they indigenous, because y'all see what they showing on that damn page. They can say they indigenous to America, because indigenous is what by their terms. Ooh, this sounds crazy. They think they slick. They think they slick. Let me try to get to the chat real quick, because I want to get to something else. See, I said I was going to be quick. It's an hour already. I said I'm going to chill today. So I'm going to go for a few more minutes. Let me see. I didn't want to get in a couple more things, but I'm going to definitely make it brief. Okay, I'm going to make it brief. Let's go. Because it's Columbus Day, Native Day, day after Thanksgiving, Lord. The day, look, Native Day, the day after Thanksgiving, they talking about a damn turkey or this, and that. Really though? Y'all really talking about turkeys and all this shit when these people don't even have a meal? There's no meal. The brother dropped the bill on there. It was so funny, cracking me up. There's no meal. Like literally, how can you have a Native American Day? What's your culture? What are y'all celebrating? Who food y'all using? Y'all don't even got a Native American meal. I can go get a Chinese meal, Italian meal, a Mexican meal, a Jewish meal, an Indian, Hindustan, that is, meal. But I can't find a Native American meal any damn where. Shit, I think that's a blend of the Mexican and the Spanish, right? Okay, that's y'all meal. Stop playing with us. Y'all don't even got a damn culture of food. Shit, we don't even got nothing y'all can cook. Come out a damn Native American Day. What the hell? Indigenous Day, sounding like a damn Native American. Like, I'm not even feeling that, y'all. You know what I'm saying? Okay, let me see. Let's read a little more of this. No, actually, we're going to stop this undrip. Y'all familiar with the undrip, but I'm going to get into a little bit of this right here, because I just want y'all to see this right here. This is amazing. This picture, just the picture itself. Emancipation. Emancipation and proclamations. This is the we went over one of these before, but not this particular one. We've done bills on the American Anti-Slavery Almanac. This is a particular almanac. This picture is crazy. I just like it. It trips me out when I look at it. I just want y'all to see it. It's a beautiful picture though. But just look at it. Slavery and salvation. Look at this shit. Hold on a second. This is the Anti-Slavery Almanac. Hold on a second, guys. Okay. The Anti-Slavery Almanac of 1839, right? We're going to look at it just a bit, just so you guys can see. Going the wrong way. The American Anti-Slavery Almanac for 1839. We're going to get into a little bit of this. It's talking about the Emancipation Ruin. Oh my God, slavery, West Indian paper of 1838. So you guys can get a little bit of information on this pertaining to the West Indian, New York, Boston area, so on and so forth. We're going to read a little bit of this just so, you know, not having anything to do with Indigenous Day, but, you know, either way.
American Anti-Slavery Almanac, for 1889, Emancipation, Ruin Slavery, Salvation. A West India paper, in 1838, says, institutions undreamed of in the days of slavery have been founded for agricultural, literary, and scientific purposes. New villages and towns are rising in various parts of the island, new streets and houses are daily being erected in the old, and new churches and chapels are rearing their heads in almost every district of the colony.
Look at these black natives.
A heathen is now as
Look at
rarely
these
to be
black
met
natives
with as was a Christian 10 years since. Hundreds of children are brought weekly to the baptismal font. Thousands are daily receiving the rudiments of education.
I want y'all to understand what this proclamation, Emancipation Proclamation, slavery, this the 40 acres and a mule, all this bullshit. Okay, all this is these people, these black natives coming in and Christianizing the people. right? When y'all thinking these people were creating the plantations all over, where these people, they was the helpers, they was working for these people. Pay attention. Oh, here we go. I ain't gonna even play. Let's just start it over.
American Anti-Slavery Almanac. For 1,000 new villages, a heathen is now as rarely to be met with, as was a Christian 10 years since. Hundreds of children are brought weekly to the baptismal font, thousands are daily receiving the rudiments of education. The vices peculiar to slavery are gradually wearing away, nightly orgies and licentious practices are fast falling into disuse, concubinage is receding before matrimony, and the long night of superstition rapidly evanishing before the sun of Christianity. The West Indian, Spanish Town, Jamaica, New York and Boston. New York,
Spanish
S.W.
Town,
Benedict.
Latin America.
Boston, Isaac Knapp. The frontispiece, on
Spanish
the cover,
Town,
represents the present
Boston,
state of
America.
things, August 1st, 1838, in the British Islands, provinces of a monarchy where slaveholders are abolishing the last vestige of slavery. The whip has disappeared, the severed chain is laid aside, laborers work. For wages the father instructs his children, the happy mother clasps her own infant to her bosom, all are rejoicing. The picture on the title page gives a glimpse at the contrast exhibited by the free states of this republic. A woman having been punished for her misfortunes by being kept in jail in Philadelphia, is torn from her child, born in jail, and delivered, by a northern constable, to the exasperated slaveholder. The scene at the right, on the same picture, illustrates northern servility and the discrimination of prejudice. A respectable colored citizen asked admission for himself and children to a public exhibition where colored servants were freely admitted. He was not only refused, but eaten with a cane for remonstrating with the doorkeeper. Our prejudice, impiously called inordination of providence, admits colored servants, however ignorant, degraded, or vicious, to closest contact, but furiously thrusts away an intelligent Christian.
Of course.
Another illustration of the same truth occurred in CT. On a cold dark night in December, 1833, the mistress of the Steamboat Hotel at New London, turned from her doors 3 colored girls who had just arrived in the steamboat, because they were going to school. She said she should accommodate gentlemen traveling with.
Now hold on. If they was going to school, remember they got slaves going on now. How could they possibly have 3 colored girls coming there on a boat ride to go to school if it was only slaves? And I thought they didn't, read. They couldn't, but I'm just saying.
Their servants. The American Anti-Slavery Society was formed December 4, 1833. In May, 1834, it had 60 auxiliaries, most of which existed before the American Society are as formed. May, 1835, 226, May, 1836, 527, May, 1837, 1006, May, 1838, 1350, including state societies in each free state, except Indiana and New Jersey. The society received in the part of a year ending May 1834, $1,048.05, year ending May 1835, $9,831.29, 1,836, 25,866, 31,837, $38,304.89, 1,838, 44,000, and $94.07. Total, $119,144.60. Abolitionists have given less to this society in 4 years than the nation has spent in the Florida War in 5 days, $25,000 per day. They can give and collect $200,000 in a year, all of which could be used, and is greatly needed to supply the increasing demands of the cause. Will they refuse to do it? Anti-slavery periodicals. Weekly. Emancipator, 143 Nassau Street, New York, Joshua Levitt, editor, $2 in advance. Colored American, 2 Frankfurt Street, NY, Samuel E. Cornish, editor, $2 Liberator, 25 Cornhill, Boston, William Lloyd Garrison, editor, $2.50. Herald of Freedom, Concord, NH, N.P. Rogers, editor, $1. Friend of Man, 56 Genesee Street, Utica, NY, William Goodell, editor, $2. Philanthropist, N.W. Corner of Main and 6th Street, Cincinnati, O. Gamaliel Bailey Jr., editor, $2. Pennsylvania Freeman, 29 North 9th Street, Philadelphia, John G. Whittier, editor, $2. Christian Witness, 7 5th St. Pittsburgh, PAWMH Burley, editor, $2. Semi-monthly. Advocate of Freedom, Brunswick, Me 50 CTS monthly. Human Rights, 143, Nassau STNY, 25 CTS Charter Oak Hartford, CT 25 CTS Spirit of Roger Williams, 14 * Westminster ST. Providence, K 1.25 CTS Important Publication. Human Rights Extra, containing the most interesting facts from the West Indies, up to August 1, 1838. Abolitionists should immediately place it in every family in the U.S. Price $1 per 100. Catalog of publications, for sale at the Depository of the American Anti-Slavery Society, 143, Nassau Street, and at the depositories in Boston, Hartford, Providence, Philadelphia, Utica, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, Concord, N.H. and C-bound volumes. Pages Sin. Hunt. Dozen Anti-Slavery Manual, 18 MO 162 25 20 250 Alton Riots, by President Beecher, of Illinois College. 6245 00600 Alton Trials, 12 MO 158 50 37 55 00 American Liberties and American Slavery, _ 464
American
100
slavery.
75
It don't
00
say
10
African.
00 Anti-Slavery.
I want y'all to know this. No, nowhere here do you say it doesn't say African slavery. It says it keeps talking about the American liberties, so on and so forth. The anti-slavery in the American slavery. It does not talk about African slavery. This is triangular. All the American and the islands, the Caribbean seas, all those islands in an area that belong to America.
Record 12 MO 174 31 25 003 13 Appeal by MRS. Child 12 MO 216 37 33 003 75 Ball, Charles, 12 MO 517 125 100 00 50 Bourne's Picture of Slavery, 18 MO 228 50 37 55 00 Chloe Spear, 18 MO 108 25 17 00 250. Vol. 1 Number 4. The American Anti-Slavery Almanac. For 1889. Being the third after bisextile or leap year, and the 63 DJOF American Independence. Calculated for Boston, adapted to the New England states. What has the North to do with slavery? One have no fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness, but rather reprove them. New York and Boston, published for the American Anti-Slavery Society. New York, S.W. Benedict, 113, Nassau St. Boston, Isaac Knapp, 25, Cornhill. RCS 5571 /L0S3%. The first will be total. Remarks. There are few clocks.
But I just want y'all to see that because it was showing. I like to show stuff about the triangular slave trade, things that have to do with the Caribbean, them trading back and forth. England, y'all know here. I hope them trading with England once they got them into it with the king, so on and so forth, doing certain things, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, I told you I want to make this a short one. I'm going to just browse around YouTube. I'm trying to make it a relaxing day. I don't want to do too much work, too much studying. I just had to make a couple more calls, and, I'm going to enjoy and relax for the rest of the day. Been a busy weekend. So I hope everyone has a great day. Peace, love, and bliss. Hope you guys enjoyed the bill. Oh, actually, let me play something if I get out of here. Play another video before I go. Hold on a second. Play another one. Where is it? I'm mad I can't find this one particular video. I could have sworn it was in here, but it is not in here. It is not in here. It is not in here. Okay, let me play this one. Oh, I like this one. All right. Let's see. Share.